I never meant to find it. It was just another Saturday afternoon, sunlight pouring through the dusty attic window as I helped Mom sort through boxes marked Christmas stuff and junk. Don't open. I was sweaty, annoyed, and ready to be done. Then I found that box. It was tucked behind an old rocking horse and a broken lamp, small, unmarked, and humming with the strange energy of forgotten things. I pulled it toward me, coughed through a cloud of dust, and opened it. A photo album. Old leather-bound, faded. I flipped it open and my world split in two. The first photo was of my dad. My dad, Michael Whitmore. Same laugh lines, same easy grin that used to feel like home. He had his arm around a woman I'd never seen before, long dark hair, warm smile, and at their feet were two kids. A boy and a girl. They looked about my age. I blinked. Once. Twice. Still there. The photo wasn't just a fluke. There were more. Dozens. My dad and that woman at a beach. My dad helping the boy ride a bike. Christmas mornings. Birthday cakes. The same handwriting I'd seen all over our family albums marking the dates in the corner. Dates that matched the weekends he was always away for work. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just kept flipping through the pages like I was watching my own life unravel, one glossy image at a time. My name is Emma Whitmore. I'm 22. And it turns out my father has a second family. I carried the album downstairs like it weighed 1,000 pounds. When I showed it to my mom, her face went pale. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the pictures for what felt like forever. Then, in the coldest voice I've ever heard her use, she said, "Ask your father." So I did. I cornered him in the garage the next day while he was fiddling with his ancient radio. I showed him the album. No excuses. No gaslighting. He didn't even flinch. "It's complicated," he said. "I did what I had to do. That's it. That's all I got. Not sorry, not let me explain, not I never meant to hurt you. Just that." I don't know what was worse, the betrayal or the way he just kept moving. Like nothing had changed. Like my world hadn't just cracked down the middle. It's been a week. I haven't told anyone else. I haven't talked to my mom since that night. She's walking around like a ghost, like this is a rerun of a movie she's already watched 100 times. I think part of her always knew. Or maybe she chose not to know. But me. I can't unknow this. I can't unsee those kids. My half-siblings, I guess. I don't even know their names. I don't know if they know about me. If they call him Dad. If they think he's a hero. Because for 22 years he was mine. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I know one thing for sure. I can't go back to pretending. Not now. Not ever. And if this is the start of something, I don't know, something bigger, then I'm ready to dig. Because secrets this big don't live alone. I didn't sleep. For 3 days. I kept the album under my bed like a crime scene. My phone buzzed with texts from friends, work group chats. I ignored them all. I kept seeing that one photo. Dad kneeling next to the boy with the crooked smile, his hand resting on the kid's shoulder like he belonged to him. Because he did. I thought the worst of it was knowing about them. I was wrong. The worst was knowing there might be more. So I started digging. I began with the woman in the photos. She was in enough of them that I had a decent shot at a name. There was one birthday picture where someone had written, "To Lily, 35, never looked so good," on a card half visible in the background. Lily. I had a name. A quick search through public records, some social media sleuthing, and a lucky connection through an old Facebook photo tag got me her full name, Lily Hammond. She lived one town over. A 20-minute drive from our house. 20 minutes. My entire childhood he was 20 minutes away from another life. The internet told me more than I ever asked for. Lily was a paralegal. Divorced, no surprise there. She had 2 kids, Ethan and Sophia Hammond, both around my age. The biggest punch? Sophia and I went to the same high school. Different grades but the same hallways. Same pep rallies. We were even in the same theater club one semester. I shared a stage with my sister and didn't even know it. But it didn't stop there. I kept digging. I found old tax records. I found another bank account in my dad's name, separate from the one my mom always managed. And the address tied to it? A small house near Lakewood. I drove there. I had no idea what I was expecting. Another family barbecue? Birthday balloons? Some stranger opening the door and telling me I had the wrong place? But the house was dark. A foreclosure notice was taped to the window, dated 2 months ago. Inside, I saw shadows of what used to be a home. An old couch. Crayon marks on the wall. A picture hook with no frame above the fireplace. Whatever they had here, it was gone. I stood there on the porch for a long time, breathing in the dust of their ghost. When I got home, I found my mom in the kitchen staring into her coffee like it might tell her something. I sat down across from her and said, "You knew, didn't you?" She didn't answer for a while. Then she said, "I knew about Lily. I didn't know about the kids. Not until later. And by then," she trailed off. "And you stayed?" I asked, choking on my own disbelief. "I stayed for you," she said. "Because I wanted to believe it was over. Because I didn't want to raise you alone. Because I was afraid." Her eyes met mine. "I was afraid you'd look at me one day the way you're looking at me now. So now I'm sitting here looking at everything I thought I knew, my dad, my mom, our house, our family, and realizing it's all scaffolding built on top of a secret. But here's the thing about secrets. Once you start pulling the thread, they never stop unraveling. And I'm not done yet. Because someone lied to me for 22 years. And it wasn't just my dad. Revenge isn't loud. It's not screaming or breaking plates or storming out in the rain with mascara running down your face. It's quiet. Like a chess game where the pieces are people and the board is everything they thought you'd never touch. And I was done being the girl in check. The first move was simple. I printed the photos, just a few. Carefully selected. Dad holding Ethan. Dad kissing Lily's cheek. Sophia on his shoulders at what looked like the zoo. I slid them into a manila envelope, no return address, and mailed them to his office downtown. The same office where he'd celebrated 25 years of loyalty and leadership, last fall, in a room full of people who probably had no idea who he really was. Let them wonder. Let the whispers start. That was just the warning shot. But the real revenge. That came with the second move. I started talking to Sophia. It wasn't hard to reach her. Her Instagram was public and I knew how to start the conversation in a way that didn't come off like a bomb. I messaged her a photo from the yearbook. Us both in costume from that spring play. Said, "Crazy we were in this together. Found something wild I think you should know." She replied in 5 minutes. An hour later we were sitting in the back. She showed me a text from 6 months ago. "I'll make it up to you. I promise." It was the last thing he ever sent. Ethan had blocked him. Sophia hadn't. I think a part of her still hoped he'd come back. Now she looked like she wanted to throw her cup through a window. "We're sisters," I said after the silence had swallowed the table whole. "Looks like," she whispered. And then she smiled. Not a sweet smile. Not a sad one. But the kind you see in someone who's ready to burn it all down. By the end of that week we had a plan. Dad's 55th birthday was coming up. Big party. Hosted by one of his law firm buddies. Family, friends, clients, everyone who mattered to him in one place. I RSVP'd for 2. We didn't come in loud. We came in clean. Sophia in a sleek black dress, hair down. Me in red. Eyes sharp. We didn't even need to speak. Just walked in one step behind the other like twin ghosts come to collect. He saw us across the room and froze mid-laugh. I raised my glass to him. Sophia smiled. And then we turned and walked away, letting him stew in the panic. 5 minutes later his phone started buzzing. The burner account we made. It sent out a very special Google Drive link. Photos. Records. The second bank account. Emails. A copy of the foreclosure notice on Lily's old house. One by one his contacts received the truth in full resolution. And we didn't have to say a single word. Back at home I found my mother sitting on the porch. She looked at me with that unreadable calm she wore like armor. "Did you do something?" she asked. I didn't lie. "I did what he did," I said. "What I had to do." She nodded slow. Then passed me a glass of wine and said, "Good." But I wasn't done yet. Because revenge, like rot, goes deeper than the surface. And something told me there were still more lies buried in the Whitmore name. And I had just started digging. Lily Hammond was supposed to be a footnote. The other woman, the affair, the broken family he left behind. Part of me thought she'd moved on, maybe even married again. I pictured her sipping wine on a porch somewhere, reading paperbacks and trying not to think about the man who gutted her life. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Sophia and I met again, this time in her apartment. Small, cluttered, lived in. Ethan wasn't there, which was good. He hadn't responded to any of my messages, and Sophia warned me he was done with all of it. So I asked, "What happened with him?" I said, careful. Why did he block your dad? She hesitated. Then she said, because Dad didn't just leave us. He broke him. And she told me everything. When Lily found out about us, the other family, the first family, she lost it. It was 6 years ago. Sophia was 16. Tim was 13. Lily found a receipt tucked in his wallet for a diamond bracelet. Not hers. Then she found a picture in his glove box. My mom. Holding me. Everything spiraled. Lily confronted him. Screamed, cried, begged. He told her flat out that we were his real family. That he had responsibilities. That he'd made a mistake being with her. Then he left. No lawyer. No child support. No weekend visits. No closure. Just silence. And Ethan? He worshipped him. He was the classic dad's boy. Backyard football, Saturday pancakes, letting him stay up late to watch superhero movies. When their dad vanished, Ethan waited by the window every weekend for 2 months. Then one day he walked into Lily's room and found her on the floor. Empty pill bottles on the nightstand. Sophia had been at a friend's house. Ethan was the one who called the ambulance. He was the one who kept her breathing. He was the one who watched the man he called dad never show up to the hospital. And that was it. The worship died. It calcified into something else. I sat there stunned, the air gone from my lungs. You never told him? I asked. Sophia shook her head. Ethan made me promise not to. He didn't want to give Dad the satisfaction. He didn't want him to think he still had power. I nodded slow. But something didn't sit right. Something about Lily's story felt unfinished. Later that night I drove to the old Lakewood house again. I don't know what I thought I'd find. More photos, maybe a forgotten letter in a drawer. Something. Dad, I found a neighbor. Older man, maybe mid-60s, watering the dead plants by his porch. I asked him if he remembered the Hammonds. Oh sure, he said. Nice woman. Kids were polite. That husband though, he clicked his tongue. Bit of a piece of work. Always yelling. Broke her fence once, left it like that for months. My stomach turned. Did he ever come back after he left her? The man looked up. His face changed. Something sharpened in his eyes. He came back once, he said. Few months after he moved out. Middle of the night. I only saw because my dog started barking. There was yelling. Real bad. Thought about calling the cops, but by the time I got dressed he was gone. He paused. She was different after that. Kiki. Kept the blinds shut. Then one day poof. House empty. Just the kids. Thanked him. Got back in my car. And sat in the dark for a long time. The official story? Lily moved out on her own. Needed a fresh start. But there was no forwarding address. No social media. No trace. Just gone. I called Sophia. Told her everything. She was silent for so long I thought the call dropped. Then she said, Ethan always said something was off. Thought it was trauma. I thought he just hated him too much to be rational. What if he was right? I whispered. What if she didn't leave? She said back. So now we've got a ghost woman. A son with buried rage. A father with violent shadows in his past. And I'm starting to wonder if this wasn't just an affair. Maybe it was a pattern. Maybe there were more. And if that's true, then I'm not digging for secrets anymore. I'm digging for bodies. The more I learned about Lily Hammond, the less I believed she left willingly. People don't just vanish into thin air. Not unless they're running. Or someone made sure they couldn't come back. After the neighbor's story about the screaming and that one final night, something snapped into place. I couldn't stop thinking about it. My father, Michael Whitmore, pillar of the community, who taught me how to ride a bike and recite multiplication tables, had returned to that house after he left them. Unannounced. In the middle of the night. And afterward Lily was never the same. Then she disappeared. Not moved. Not relocated. No trail. No online footprint. No new address, no work history. Just gone. I didn't tell Sophia everything. Not yet. I needed more. Proof. Something irrefutable. So I went back to the Lakewood house. It was technically city-owned now, foreclosed and forgotten, but the back door had a loose frame. A little pressure and it gave way with a whimper. I stepped inside, flashlight in one hand, adrenaline pounding through my veins like war drums. The place had been picked over by time. Dust. Subject. I won't be silent anymore. If anything happens to me, it's Michael Whitmore. He's not who he says he is. No body. No police report. But this was intent. And the flash drive. That was the bomb. When I got home, I locked my bedroom door and plugged it in. It was mostly audio. Old shaky recordings. Her voice, Lily's quiet, hoarse, scared. I don't know who else to tell. I keep seeing him outside my house. I told him it was over. But he said if I talked he'd ruin me. He said no one would believe me because he's the hero and I'm just the mistake. Another file, he's done this before. I'm not the first. I found pictures. Receipts. Another woman. Same story. He gets bored, he moves on. But he doesn't just leave. He erases. I paused the audio and just sat there staring at the wall. Not breathing. Not crying. Just planning. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a pattern. A predator with a polished smile and a closet full of ghosts. And now I had evidence. The next day I skipped work and drove out to a small law office 30 miles outside the city. Sophia's tip. Lily had worked there before she met my dad. I didn't expect much. But I got lucky. The receptionist remembered her. Smart girl. Hardworking. She just stopped showing up one day. I asked if she ever came back after the breakup. She hesitated. Then she said, once. For like 5 minutes. She came in with a black eye and asked if we'd seen a man hanging around. Said he'd been following her. She left before we could even call anyone. Then she added, she looked like someone who knew she was running out of time. I drove home with shaking hands and a storm building behind my ribs. I was done asking questions. Now it was time to make him answer them. He thought he buried her. He thought time would erase the bruises. He thought we'd all stay silent. My mom, Lily, Ethan, Sophia. Me. But I wasn't built like them. I wasn't here to survive him. I was here to end him. It started with a burner email. Nothing flashy. Just an anonymous tip sent to 5 local reporters. Names I pulled from past articles where my dad had been mentioned. Profiles praising his years of service to the community. His moral compass. One even called him the father of fair law. Irony is a hell of a drug. The email was simple. Just enough to make them curious. Michael Whitmore isn't who you think he is. Attached. 1 photo, 1 recording, 1 address. More available upon interest. I signed it, a daughter who knows too much. The photo, Lily's bruised face. The audio, her voice shaking, whispering. He said if I talked he'd ruin me. The address, the abandoned house in Lakewood. 3 reporters replied within 12 hours. 2 more followed by the end of the week. By Friday the story had legs. But I wasn't finished. That was just the setup. I needed leverage. So I went for the source, his law firm. I scheduled a meeting with his junior partner, Eric Cho. Young, sharp, ambitious, and probably tired of living in my father's shadow. I walked into that office like I owned it. Emma, he said, standing trying to smile. Your dad didn't mention you were coming. That's kind of the point, I said, dropping a flash drive onto his desk. He raised an eyebrow. What is this? Insurance, I said. Evidence. Audio. Photos. Proof that your beloved senior partner has a history of abuse, manipulation, and potential involvement in a missing person case. He didn't speak. Didn't even blink. So I leaned in. Eric, this is your chance to step out from behind the curtain. I know you've been angling for a promotion. You want to lead? Start by helping tear down the old guard. I could see it in his eyes. The calculation. The hunger. He nodded slowly. Send me everything. Next came the media. A local investigative reporter named Jordan Leary picked up the story and ran with it. He wanted an interview. I told her no cameras. We met in a quiet park under the guise of a casual walk. I wore sunglasses, kept my voice low. I told her about Lily. The second family. The bruises. The recordings. The disappearance. I told her about Ethan, about the night Lily almost died. I didn't give her everything, but I gave her enough. You understand this could go viral, she said. National even. I'm counting on it, I said. The real blow came 2 weeks later. A leak. Multiple emails from the firm, showing attempts to quietly settle a harassment claim against my father from years ago. A former paralegal. Buried with an NDA and a payoff. I didn't release them. Eric did. He told the press it was time the firm had a moral reset. I told him, you're welcome. Now the storm was public. His face was on local news under headlines like, "Respected attorney accused of abuse, cover-up. Missing woman last linked to Michael Whitmore. Second family speaks out. He destroyed everything he touched." Sophia and Ethan were both named in the story. Ethan had finally agreed to speak, quietly, carefully but clearly. And my father? He went silent. No statements. No interviews. But I knew it wasn't over. Because the final move hadn't happened yet. The confrontation. It came sooner than I expected. A knock on my door. Late. Rain on the windows. I opened it and there he was. Michael Whitmore. The man, the myth, the monster. He looked smaller than I remembered. Gray around the temples. A suit that suddenly didn't fit so perfectly. "Can we talk?" he said. I didn't move. "You mean lie? I never meant for it to go this far. You mean you never meant to get caught?" He looked past me like trying to find something familiar. Some version of me who still loved him. "She was unstable, Emma," he said softly. "You don't know what she was like." "Then it's a good thing she left behind receipts," I said, stepping aside. I let him in. Not because I forgave him. Because the trap was already set. A hidden camera sat on my bookshelf. The audio was clean. He admitted everything, threats, the screaming, the fact that he warned her to stay quiet. And when I asked what he did that night, the night she disappeared, he didn't say a word. Just looked away. That silence was everything. By the time he left, the footage had already backed up to 3 places. That was the final nail. I sent it to Jordan. Told her to wait. Because the next chapter would be live. In front of a crowd. Under lights. A press conference. And I'd be the one holding the mic. The press conference was set for noon. By 10, the courthouse steps were already crowded. Reporters, camera crews, curious onlookers, a few familiar faces in suits trying to pretend they weren't sweating through their collars. And me. I stood behind the podium in a fitted black blazer. No tears. No shaking. I let that last part hang in the air. "I'm here to tell you that image is a lie." Gasps. Whispered murmurs. I pressed the flash drive into the media box on the podium. Screens behind me lit up with the first image. Lily Hammond's bruised face. Then the next, a screenshot of the email. "If anything happens to me, it's Michael Whitmore." And then, audio. Her voice filled the plaza. "He said if I talked, he'd ruin me. He said no one would believe me." I could see people covering their mouths. Eyes widening. Phones up, live streaming. Then I spoke again. "Lily Hammond disappeared 6 years ago. She was my father's partner. The mother of my half-siblings. A woman who had the courage to fight back and paid the price." I stepped back. And played the final clip. The recording from my living room. My father's voice. I warned her. She knew what would happen if she pushed me. Silence. Unmistakable. Guilt. From there it moved fast. News outlets picked it up immediately. Hashtag Michael Whitmore trended by 1 p.m. By 3, the DA's office had reopened Lily's case under suspicious circumstances. By 5, 2 former employees came forward with harassment claims of their own. Both buried under NDAs, both naming him. And Eric Cho? He publicly announced a complete restructuring of the firm. My father's name was being scraped off the front doors by the next morning. He tried to respond, of course. Hired a PR team. Denied everything. Called the recordings doctored. Called me unstable. But the media had already turned. The internet. Even faster. Every skeleton he thought he'd buried had claws, and now they were clawing their way out. 2 days later, the biggest moment of all. Human remains found near Lakewood, close to the old Hammond home. Female. Mid-30s. Investigation ongoing. No confirmation yet. But I knew. I knew exactly who they found. That night I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the glow of my phone. The world was unraveling for him, piece by piece. And I was finally breathing. But I also knew something else. This wasn't the end. This was only the fall. The reckoning. The final chapter of a man who thought he could destroy women and walk away untouched. Me. I wasn't just his daughter anymore. I was his legacy. And I chose to rewrite the story. 3 months after the press conference, my father was arrested. Not for murder. Not yet. But for obstruction, harassment, and falsifying financial records linked to his second family. The law was slow, tangled in red tape and expensive lawyers, but the tide had turned. The court of public opinion had already made its ruling. He was indicted in the fall. No more handshakes. No more golf invitations. No more pillar of the community. The only cameras that followed him now were news crews chasing him down courthouse steps. His trial for Lily's death was still building. The remains found in Lakewood? DNA confirmed it was her. Lily Hammond, aged 37, cause of death, blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. My father's fingerprints weren't on the weapon, but his voice was on the tape. She knew what would happen if she pushed me. The prosecution painted the story clearly. A man with a history of manipulation and control. A woman who tried to break away. A confrontation. A fall. A silence that lasted 6 years. Sophia testified. Ethan testified. And then they called me. I took the stand in a courtroom packed wall to wall. My voice didn't shake. I didn't cry. I used to believe my father was a good man, I said, looking directly at him. Now I know he was just good at pretending. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The verdict came after 6 days. Guilty. 25 years to life for second-degree murder. 10 additional years for obstruction and coercion. He didn't say a word as they cuffed him. Just stared straight ahead, like if he focused hard enough, the truth would disappear again. But this time it stayed. I visited his prison once. Not to forgive. Not for closure. Just to see the man without the mask. He looked smaller. Not in size but in presence. Like the weight of the truth had finally crushed the myth of him. He tried to talk. I raised my hand. No. You don't get that anymore. Then I left. In the months after, life didn't magically heal. There were therapy sessions. Nightmares. Days I wanted to disappear just like Lily had. But there was also strength. Sophia and I grew close. Sometimes I looked at her and saw the pieces of Lily that survived. Sometimes I looked in the mirror and saw pieces of me that hadn't existed before any of this happened. Ethan started a foundation in his mother's name. The Lily Fund, for survivors of domestic abuse with no voice, no exit, no evidence. I helped launch the first fundraiser. We raised over $100,000 in 3 weeks. His people finally saw the truth. And the truth? It's harder to kill than a person. Now every year on the day the press conference went live, I write a letter to the version of me who still thought he was a hero. I tell her you were wrong. But I also tell her you were brave. Because turning the truth into a weapon takes more courage than keeping the lie alive.